Alright, let's talk about it. Every fighter hits a rough patch, but when that L comment starts stacking up, yeah, it starts getting real. Some of these guys are on the verge of fading out, and honestly, I don't want to see that happen. And in this video, we're going to talk about giving them a shot at redemption. I'm playing matchmaker today, trying to flip some of these losing streaks into much needed W's. No random fantasy picks either. I'm trying to keep it realistic and aiming to actually save a few careers here. Also, a quick heads up, I'm not including anyone who's already got a fight booked. This is for the ones who's still waiting for that call. So let's try to get them back on track. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, let's talk about Triple C, or more like Triple L at this point. Man, this one's tough. Henry Cejudo came back with all this hype, right? The king of cringe, double champion, Olympic gold medalist, yada yada. He has the resume. He has the mouth, and we all expected him to come back and shake things up again, but it hasn't really gone that way, and in my opinion, Henry's looking worse and worse every time he returns. Not unwatchable, not completely out of his league, but just slower, flatter, and honestly more beatable. And I gotta be real here, I never thought his offensive wrestling and MMA was that crazy to begin with. He's not out here chain wrestling people or dominating them with top control like a Prime Habib or even a Marab type guy. His takedowns were always based on timing, setups, and catching guys slipping, not raw wrestling pressure. And now that he lost a step, that wrestling's even less effective. The setups aren't landing the same, and guys aren't reacting to the threat like they used to. So now he's mostly relying on his striking, and while it's clean and technical, that's not going to carry him at the highest level unless he's fighting someone who lets him dictate the pace. So when I look at the top 15 bantamweights in the rankings, I'm thinking, who can he beat right now? Not someone to test himself against, not someone to prove that he's still elite, just someone who gives him a realistic shot to flip that losing streak and get some confidence back. And to me, the name that makes the most sense is Amin Sahabi. He's ranked number 14. Sahabi's a super technical fighter, and obviously he's got that sharp mind of a game. He's got good IQ, but here's the thing, he's not a high volume striker, he's not super aggressive, and he doesn't bring that overwhelming pace that's gonna wear Cejudo down. That works perfectly in Henry's favor in my opinion. This is the kind of matchup where Henry can slow the fight down and get back to his faint heavy striking, maybe mixing in a takedown or two and just grind out a vet style decision. Sahabi's not going to push the pace that forces Henry into deep waters. He's not going to bully him physically, and unless he clips him with something big, Henry's probably going to be the one to be able to outpoint him in a very methodical fight. It's the ideal kind of bounce back fight in my opinion. Winnable style matchup, check. A chance to shake off the rust and maybe regain a little bit of confidence, big check. So yeah, if we're trying to save Cejudo's career and get him back into the win column, Sahabi's the guy. No need to throw him in with Font or Batista or anyone with that crazy volume and durability. Just let him rest, get back into rhythm, and maybe spark one last run before the door officially closes, you know? Alright, let's keep this rolling, and now we're heading over to the featherweight division to talk about Calvin Kattar, who's currently clinging on to that 15th spot in the rankings. And man, this one hurts a little because just a couple years ago, Kattar was right in the mix. He was one of those guys that you knew that he was going to give you a tough, gritty, heavy fight. He's got that clean boxing, a granted chin, and that New England grit that made fans really ride for him. But right now, he's in a rough spot, like really rough. He's currently on a 4-fight losing streak. And yeah, I know there's some context to a couple of those, but still, the number is what it is. Let's break it down real quick. He got a razor close split decision to Josh Emmett. Some people thought he won, some people thought he didn't, but the judges gave it to Emmett. Then the fight came with Arnold Allen, and that one was rough because he blew his knee out early in the second round. Total freak injury. And after that, he took on Aljamain Sterling, who was making his featherweight debut. Aljo outworked him and used his grappling and made it an ugly, grindy decision, loss for Kattar. And most recently, he dropped the unanimous decision to Youssef Zalal, which kind of moment for a lot of the fans. That was an unranked guy. That was the fight people expected Calvin to win and get back on track, and it just didn't happen. So now we're at this weird crossroads where Kattar's still ranked at number 15, but you gotta think that the UFC matchmakers are looking closely at this one. Like if he drops 5 straight, especially to another low tier or unranked guy, this might finally pull him out of the rankings, or worse, let him go altogether. So what's the move? What's the kind of fight that makes sense for Calvin if he's going to keep that spot and maybe start rebuilding? And that name that really stands out to me is Alex Caceres. Let me explain. Caceres isn't the kind of guy who's going to overwhelm Calvin with pressure or reach. He's not a volume striker like Holloway, not a grinder like Aljo. He's not going to come out with headhunting like Josh Emmett. What Caceres brings is charisma creative footwork and trickiness, but it's not overwhelming. He's a guy that Kelvin can read, time, and start building confidence against as the rounds go on. This is the kind of fight where Kelvin can work behind his jab, stay patient, and let the boxing do the talking. He won't be getting smothered, he won't be dealing with huge power shots, and he can avoid these type of exchanges that have gotten him in trouble lately. And honestly, it just feels like this is the kind of striking chess match that the fans would enjoy. But that also gives Kattar the space to look at himself again. Plus, let's be real, Caceres is a vet, he's respected, and a win over him still means something. It's not like fighting a debuting guy or someone who's completely unranked. It's a bounce back fight with just the amount of risk and a whole lot of upside if Kelvin can put it off. Alright, next up, let's move over to the lightweight division and let's talk about Beneil Dariush. Man, this is another one that stings a little. Beneil is one of those guys who was right there, like right at the door of a title shot. He had that long win streak, was beating dangerous dudes, and just needed one more win to get that crack at gold. And then it all slipped away. Back-to-back losses will do that to you. First off, Charles Oliveira, then to Arman Tsarukyan, and both of those were clean. Charles overwhelmed him early, and Arman hit him with that perfect time right hand that shut the lights out. So now the question is Beneil elite? We know that he still got the skills. The question is, can he still hang with these killers at the top without taking too much damage? Because stylistically, Beneil is dangerous. His grappling is high level. He thrives in scrambles, and his striking, while awkward, is effective when he's confident and moving forward. But at the age of 35, after 2 bad knockouts, you gotta start being careful about who you're throwing him in there with. And this is where Renato Moicano comes in. The fight actually makes a ton of sense, and not just from a stylistic point of view. It was already supposed to happen before. These two were matched up a while back, but the fight fell through when Moicano ended up stepping up on short notice to fight Islam Makhachev instead. So there's already some unfinished business here, and with both guys healthy and on book, now is the perfect time to run it back. From a style perspective, this one is gold because Moicano's not a one-shot knockout guy. He's slick, he's methodical, and more of a volume striker with a sneaky good ground game. He was in a nice little streak, he found his voice with that mic, and he's looking for a name to push him up the rankings. Beneil's that name. And the best part, Moicano isn't going to rush across the cage and try to blitz Beneil in the first 30 seconds. This would be a technical high-level chess match type of fight, and that's exactly what Dariush needs right now. This is the kind of matchup that gives Beneil time to breathe. He can test his grappling again, maybe get some cage control going, and show that he still has something left in the tank. With all that being said, now we're going to the welterweight division, and next up we got Leon Edwards. Leon is still sitting at number 3 in the welterweight rankings, former champ, and yeah, he's definitely still got the skills, but let's be honest, things have been taking a rough turn lately. First of all, he lost the belt to Bilal Muhammad, and then he got submitted by Sean Brady. And look, there's no shame in losing in either of those guys. They're both elite, but the reality is Leon is now on a 2-fight losing streak, and that aura that he had as a champion is fading. And I mean, it's fading a lot. So now the question is, what's next? He's not getting an immediate rematch with Bilal. Brady just beat him up. The top of the division is a little jammed up, but if Leon wants to stay active, stay relevant, and remind everyone that he's still that guy, he's got to take a smart fight. And the one that makes sense right now, in my opinion, is Jeff Neal. And technically, yeah, in terms of the rankings and momentum, it's a bit of a gamble, but stylistically, this is the type of fight that could bring out the best in Leon Edwards. Jeff Neal isn't a guy who's going to overwhelm you with his wrestling or smother you with the pace like Bilal did. He's not some cardio machine that's going to chain takedowns and gas you out. He's a striker. He wants to stand and trade, pressure forward, and find those kill shots. And that plays right into Leon's game, in my opinion. Leon's at his best when he can manage distance, set traps, and keep things clean and technical. He's got some of the best timing and shot selection in the division. And against a guy like Jeff, who comes in linear and doesn't throw in volume, that's where Leon can thrive. He'll be able to get his reads early, control the pace, and start chopping Neal up with kicks and counters. And let's not forget, Leon's defense is underrated. The guy rarely takes any clean damage if he can avoid that big left hand, which he's shown that he could do against better striker than Neal's. He can cruise through 3 rounds or even 5. This isn't a guy who needs to get dragged into a war. Leon can play the outside game, frustrate Jeff, and start racking rounds with ease. For Leon, it's the perfect rebound fight. He gets a ranked opponent, stay active, and resets without jumping right back into a wrestling heavy nightmare matchup. And for Neil, it's a huge opportunity fight for a former champion and test himself against a rough loss. Alright, now we're going to the middleweight division, and we're going to talk about Israel Adesanya. Izzy is in one of those strangest stretches of his career right now. We're talking about a guy who once was untouchable at middleweight, ran through the division, defended the belt multiple times, beat big names, even moved up to 205 just to test himself, but lately, it's been rough. He lost 3 straight fights in a row, to Sean Strickland, to Dricus du Plessis, and most recently, Nasruddin Imavov. Now, to be fair, only one of those were dominant. Sean Strickland was the one that really shut Izzy down. That was a fight where he got outworked from start to finish, but the fight with DDP, that was close, competitive. Same with the Imavov fight. Izzy had his moments in both. He just didn't quite pull the trigger enough, and it costed him. So the question is, where does he go from here? He's not getting a title shot anytime soon. Dricus is the champ. Hamza is up next. So if you're Izzy and you still want to stay active and stay relevant, you need the right fight. Not a layup, not a war. Something in between. That's why I think Roman Dolidze makes the perfect sense. And I'm not the only one who sees it. Kenny Okoye even mentioned it in his matchup recently, and I gotta say, I kinda agree with him 100%. Roman's tough, ranked, dangerous, but not overwhelming. He's a strong grappler with real power, but he's not a cardio machine, not a high volume striker, and not someone who's gonna stick a jab in your face for 25 minutes like Sean did. His pace is slower, more measured, and that's exactly the kind of opponent Izzy can settle into his rhythm against. This gives Izzy space to work with. He can manage distance, set traps, and go back to being the sniper we all remember. He's got the speed advantage, the cleaner technique, and way more high-level fight experience. If Izzy still has that elite timing in him, this is the fight where it could show up again. And for Roman, this is his shot, a former champ, still ranked, still respected, and if he pulls it off, it's a breakout moment. But for Izzy, it's a calculated reset, a competitive fight that gives him a chance to remind people that he's still here, still sharp, and still capable of doing things at 185. Another fighter I would love to see bounce back is Paulo Costa. And yeah, I know, it's been a rough one. 1 win in his last 5, and the mystique that surrounded him back in the Romero fight, long gone. The guy went from being the shredded Brazilian powerhouse, starching fools left and right, to, well, someone we kind of look at now like, is he still serious about this? And listen, I'm not here to bury the guy. I still think there's a version of Costa that can make waves. But if we're going to be honest, that window is closing. The cardio has always been suspect. He's not really evolving much, especially with his style. And on top of that, every fight now feels like a gamble. So here's the question. Who does he fight next? Who can get him back in the win column without feeding him to the wolves? I got a name, Abus Magomedov. Now, hear me out. Abus is ranked number 15, and yeah, he's dangerous early. He throws some heat, mixing some kicks, and he can absolutely spark you if you're sleeping in the first couple minutes. But let's keep it real, the dude falls off hard if you survive the first wave. We saw it against Strickland, we've seen it against other guys. Once that early fire fades, he becomes a complete different fighter. The output drops, the footwork drops, and he starts getting tagged. And that's the exact opponent that Costa needs right now. Because even in his losses, Costa showed that he can hang in scraps. He's still tough, he's still durable. This would be a banger on paper too. Both guys love to strike, both come out hot, and if Costa plays it smart, maybe lets Abus blows his gas tank a bit, keeps his own composure, he can absolutely take over the rounds in round 2 and 3. Pressure, body kicks, that hide guard, walking forward. It could be a classic, turn of the tide kind of win. Moving on, we go to the light heavyweight division, and I gotta talk about Alexander Rakic because this one is kind of flowing under the radar, but it's time to figure out where he really stands in the light heavyweight division. Rakic is still ranked number 6, but man, it's been a rough run. The dude hasn't won a fight since like 2021, and now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. First, he was doing well against Jan Blachowicz before he blew his knee out. Then he came back for UFC 300, and then he got knocked out by Yuri Prochazka, and most recently, he dropped the decision to Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 308. So yeah, it's not just the losses, it's who he's losing to. All elite guys, but at this point, Rakic is in danger of drifting out of the mix completely if he doesn't turn things around soon. So what's next for him? He doesn't need another monster at top, I'll tell you that. Not yet. Right now, he needs a fight that's still meaningful, but gives him a legit shot to reset. And to me, that's Volkan Ozdemir. Volkan's still a dangerous striker. He's been in there with everybody, and he's floating around that number 9 spot. And stylistically, it's a fun matchup. Volkan comes forward, throws with heat, and he doesn't mind turning it into a scrap. Rakic is more calculated, more technical, likes to work behind his kicks, and fight at range. This wouldn't be some grindy wrestling match. This would be two strikers trying to reclaim their spot with their backs against the wall. Win or lose, that's the kind of fight that the fans want to see. So for Rakic, a win here doesn't just stop the bleeding, it gives him momentum again, gets his name back in the mix, and yeah, those are the matchups I think that make the most sense to help these guys break their losing streak. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with me or if you got different picks. And if you enjoyed the video, I'll catch you on my next one.